Alright, welcome to Air Capital Hot Rods. This is the first video of what will hopefully be lots of videos. First video is give a little tour of the shop and a little overview of the projects that are going on. So the first vehicle here in the shop is the 68 C10. I built this about finished it about 7 years ago. It's a 68 short bed, originally short bed. Had to replace the cab and still do a bunch of rust repair on it. Shaved the drip rail on it. Just about every body panel is modified in some way, except the hood, which is kind of unique because most people, that's the one body panel they do modify, aka put a cowl induction hood on it. Just regular stock hood. Probably the biggest body modification is I shaved the drip rail on it, so it turned out pretty good. Also eliminated the wing windows, and quite frankly, I wish I hadn't have. I got a lot of wind noise and it just doesn't work out great. Got 20-inch raceline billet wheels on it. Rear tires are like 315 35/20s or something like that, so pretty wide. Tubbed out the rear wheel wells a little bit, and then it's got Camaro LT1 disc brakes on it with Caprice rotors on it. In the front, got some dual piston calipers. Quite frankly, for the amount of work that I did on modifying the brakes, they suck. So I'll be changing those out to I think a CPP big brake kit sometime in the near future. Under the hood, got a 5.3 liter out of a 2005 Avalanche. It's run great. Haven't had really any problems with it. Just a little bit with the throttle body when I've washed the engine. So I don't know exactly. I think I get water in there or something into the wiring or something, and it doesn't seem to like it. So I'm gonna fix that. Right now the engine's kind of torn apart a little bit, as I'm doing a little bit of work between it and another engine. I'll explain here in a minute. Got a line lock solenoid on there. It's a Corvette manual disc brake master cylinder off of a 70s. I don't know. I've had a couple on them trying to solve the brake problem, and hence why I'm just going to buy a whole kit that has everything in it. Have a Camaro LS1 electric fans for it. Got a tonneau cover for it. Looks pretty neat. Got some Tahoe seats out of it, or in it. Odometer gauges. Air conditioning controls. So there's the stock controls modified to work with the old air AC system, and then some aftermarket AM/FM radio that has an auxiliary input. Doesn't work that great. So that's the truck. It's pretty sweet. I don't know how fast it is on the drag strip or anything. I haven't wanted to take it to the track with the brakes not being as capable as they need to. I would guess low 14, honestly. It's got 410 gears in it with posi. Probably low 14, maybe high 13s, but it's pretty fun. Let's see here. Next in the shop is the 2002 BMW 540i. It's up there on the lift. Right now it's engine stock, put a stereo in it. But the big news for right now is I am working on a Ford 8.8 rear conversion for it, rear end conversion. So that's 8.8 independent rear suspension differential out of a, I think it's a 2003 Explorer. So I'm making the kit. It mounts to the back, it mounts to the front, right there, that red bracket. And uses a trick flow cover on it that has stud girdles on it. And then I had custom axle shafts made. So those are the Ford Explorer inner joints, and then you got the BMW outer joints. And so I'm in the middle of this conversion. I don't have the other axle in yet. Had to wait for a C-clip because, or a snap ring, whatever you want to call it, because I misplaced it, or they didn't send it back when I had the axle sent in to have modified. And then there's the drive shaft. So temporarily, I'm planning on making a spacer that will join the flange, the rear end flange and the drive shaft flange temporarily. So eventually I'm going to have a custom drive shaft made. As this is just in preparation for the next phase of the Beamer project, and that is over here. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is a 2007 4.8 liter LS engine out of a 2007 Chevy truck. So it's a Gen 4 engine. 4.8 liters. Don't have the displacement on demand, so that helps out a little bit. So what we're doing here is the truck intake manifold and accessories won't fit under the hood of the Beamer. So I took all the accessories and the intake manifold off of this 4.8 liter and put it on the 68 because I got plenty of hood clearance over there. And on the 68 I had Corvette accessories and a LS6 intake manifold. So I put those onto this engine. So since this is a Gen 4, it has a little bit different of a throttle body. So I had to get this little adapter right here to adapt the 3-bolt intake manifold to the 4-bolt throttle body. And I have a similar adapter on the intake manifold over here to go from the 4-bolt intake manifold to the 3-bolt throttle body. Did a little research and it sounded like that was an easier solution than trying to swap the throttle bodies with it and mess with the wiring and the computers and everything. I guess they operate a little bit differently, and hopefully that'll be easier. So what's left on here is I got to connect up a couple of hoses yet, and then the power steering pump. There's a hose down there that needs to get connected to the power steering pump. Hopefully that'll just bolt right in, but I'm not sure, or thread right in, I should say. And then put the fans back in, and then she should be back on the road again. So obviously, Beamer, gonna get a 4.8 liter. I'm gonna call it a BMW 548iT. T for turbo. See how those manifolds are faced forward. So hopefully put some V-bands on there and run the turbo forward onto the front passenger side of the engine. Somewhere in this vicinity. We'll have to kind of get it in there and see. I'm hoping to use the stock AC compressor out of the BMW, just make up a mount, hopefully near the stock original location for the LS engines, which lives right down in here. So, a little bit more about the project. This is the T56 6-speed manual transmission out of a 2002 Camaro that's going to go behind it. That's a Pro 5.0 shifter, and that is a Monster Stage 3 clutch. So it's rated for 750 horsepower with the turbo. I'm shooting for a conservative, I think 550 horsepower should be pretty easily achievable. So the clutch is rated for 750 horsepower. The rear end has been known to hold over 1,000 horsepower, so hopefully 550 is not a real big deal for it. So the reason for the 8.8 is, so the 8.8 came out of a 2003 Explorer, like I said, has 373 gears in it and a limited slip differential. So that was all good positives. The rear end cost me like $150 at the pull your part salvage yard. This is the BMW rear end. It has 315 gears and is an open differential. The only BMWs that came stock with limited slip was the M5s. They also had 315 gears in it, and basically choices for other gears are pretty limited and pretty expensive. The M5 differential is expensive, and aftermarket limited slip is expensive. So the $150 Ford 8.8 rear end seemed like a better option. Custom axles, a little bit oversized compared to the stock BMW size and the stock Explorer size. I think they're 1 3/8 inches if I remember right. So should be good for quite a bit of horsepower. Custom axles did end up running me about $1,100, so they were not cheap. If I could have saved a little bit of money if I wouldn't have torn them apart myself, because I damaged one of the caps, because the outer joint is not serviceable. To get the cap off, you have to, well, I destructively removed it and then had to have them give me a new cap, which cost me an extra $200. So, lesson learned. Step out on into the next part of the shop here. And here's a future project. That, my friends, is a 1970 Chevelle. Chevelle Malibu, not an SS. So it came with a straight 6, which is gone. And I don't know, turbo 350 or, yeah, I think it's turbo 350. So I started tearing this apart and then got busy and rolled it over here into the dirt barn. It's the Fred Flintstone model. So it does not have a floor in it right now. It was completely rusted out. And so when I started on it, I cut it out. I tore out the whole dash and everything. I mean, it's all gutted. It's all inside. It's going to need a full floor pan. Going to have to do some repair to the frame rails. Oh gosh, it's going to be a big mess. Came from upstate New York. The top half of it doesn't look too bad, but it looks bad down below. So it's going to need a lot of work, like I said. The plan for it, I think, since I've done like 3 or 4 LS swaps, kind of, you know, how much more LS swaps can we do? So I'm thinking, just to be unique, I'm going to put a 4.2 liter inline 6 out of a Trailblazer with variable valve timing, and then hang a turbo on it, hopefully. This is supposed to be my wife's ride, so 400 horsepower, 450, somewhere around there. I mean, I could do an LS and pretty much do that with bolt-ons, but what fun would that be? So, So here's the radiator for the Beamer. Read some stuff that the BMW cooling system isn't the greatest, so this is out of a Camaro, LS1 Camaro. LS1 Camaro fans, they seem to work great. So, a little bit of equipment. Got a 60-gallon air compressor, 60-ton brake that I made myself, paint rack, all kinds of frickin' tools. When I do a project, the shop kind of explodes. So, Miller 180 MIG welder, extra LS6 intake manifold, parts on a awesome welding table that I incorporated a Craftsman toolbox into. And then plasma table. Everybody should have that tool. It's kind of an expensive tool. So it's a Samson or I can't remember, plasma cam table. I modified it, put a water table in it, which it doesn't have water in it, so it looks like a slimy goo shit. And a Hypertherm 85 amp plasma cutter. So, and then I have SolidWorks that I can model things, draw up things. You know, so that's what I'm going to do the engine stands and stuff for the LS swap for the BMW. That's what I modeled the brackets for the 8.8 in. Made those. Couple of Jeep bumpers. Yeah, so maybe when I get this project done, I'll clean up the frickin' shop. Here in a couple of weeks, I'm taking a week off of my regular day job and hopefully going to be able to knock out a large portion of the LS swap that week. So I got some work to do to get there. Hopefully I have most of the stuff that I need. Got a GTO oil pan, new gasket for it. This is a 1350 flange for the 8.8. Got the clutch pedal for the Beamer right there. Right now it's an automatic. Got a 1350 output yoke for the transmission. So yeah, that's where Air Capital Hot Rods is right now. So stay tuned and we'll see this engine go in that car and see if it does smoky burnouts.